I do see a parallel between the multiverse story versus the Ponzi scheme, and it actually reminded me of years ago when, way before the pandemic, I used to volunteer with an animal rescue group where we would stand out on the sidewalk on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and we would have animals and we would have donation jars. And I remember there were several times when, a very well to do lady might come by. You could tell that she had means, that she lived in the area. And she'd look at our donation jar and she'd be like, I don't need to donate because God takes care of all his creatures. And I'm like, well, he didn't take care of these guys. We're actually going broke from paying their vet bills. So that's wrong. But I think that they come up with these fantasies to get out of responsibility. And that's kind of a
Exactly.
parallel that I'm seeing.
Exactly. Like, for example, in the context of the multiverse, a student that gets a C in an exam, if that student believes in the multiverse, that student would argue, well, there is another copy of me somewhere in the multiverse that gets an A. What's the problem? I shouldn't take any responsibility, But, I find that a very lazy approach to the reality that we all share. And another example is, 1,000 years ago, people believed that the human body has a soul, which again was a virtual reality. And they argued that anatomy should be forbidden. Now, you might say, okay, well, what's the problem with people thinking that the human body has a soul and therefore you shouldn't dissect it because you would hurt the soul if you dissect the human body? Okay, what's the problem with that? It's nice to believe that humans have souls, and in fact, it improves your love life if you believe that the person you're in love with has a soul, something that is not captured by the physics of the body of the person that you speak with. And you might not want that person to go through an operation, medical operation, because you say it would hurt the soul of the person I'm in love with. Okay, you might argue that. Now, what's the problem with this virtual reality? The problem is if modern medicine or science would have believed that notion, or would have said, there are people arguing that, I don't really believe in it, but it's controversial, I don't want to deal with the human body, let's forget about it, then there would never be an mRNA vaccine to COVID-19. We would never understand the DNA, what makes the human body, and we would be much worse off fighting disease or repairing the human body, from anything. And instead, once anatomy was practiced, we learned so much about the human body. Now, there are still people saying, okay, maybe there is something beyond the physical composition of the human body. I don't want to argue with that. But the point is, anatomy should not be forbidden. Okay, that's my point. And studying the reality that we live in, meaning getting into the human body and figuring out what it's made of, ended up allowing all the important discoveries of modern medicine and improve the health and the longevity of a lot of people, okay? And clearly understanding reality has great benefits for us as humans, because then we can adapt to that reality properly. We can do the right things that will promote our goals. If we understand that global warming is triggered by this and that, we can change our behavior, that. So the point is that it's always worth looking at the mirror or understanding what is really happening rather than hallucinating and imagining things that flatter our ego. But unfortunately, not a lot of people are brave. And I'm saying that not about the general public. I'm saying that about the academic community, which is very surprising to me because the government, you see, signed into law, Congress legislated the establishment of a new office that would study unidentified aerial phenomena just a few weeks ago, and it will start its operation, this new office, in June 2022. And of course, that office will consume funds, a lot of money, taxpayers' money. Now you ask yourself, how is it possible that former CIA directors Brennan and Woolsey, former President Barack Obama, Bill Nelson, head of NASA, when he was a senator, he looked at the classified data that established the foundation for this legislation. All these people talk about it as a serious matter, while academia stigmatizes it and refuses to engage with it. I heard an astronomer say, I have better things to do. I don't have time to deal with this. And I ask myself, the government is concerned enough to establish a new office. And, science is supposed to serve society. And the government is the most conservative organization. So what do you have time to? To work out the Hubble constant to the second decimal point? Is that really helping society more than finding out the nature of these objects? Now, suppose these objects end up being a natural phenomenon, like an atmospheric phenomenon. So be it. Let's just figure it out. Why isn't it the responsibility of people in academia to figure out the nature of things that the government finds puzzling, that the public is extremely interested in? Because after all, science is funded by the public. And nevertheless, what you find in academia is an approach that distances itself from the public, because they say, oh no, all this nonsense is being said. And once again, I come back to this example of the human body having a soul. It's, if we were to distance ourselves from that notion just because we find it, inappropriate, then we would not develop modern medicine. So I think scientists should be brave, especially when the government says we don't understand something. Scientists should say, okay, let's engage in it. That's why I established the Galileo Project out of private donations. The money that I have, $2 million at the moment, is not taken away from any project to study the dark matter of the universe. Okay, and it's a factor of it's hundreds of times less than the funds allocated for the search for dark matter. And I ask you, if we find that the dark matter is weakly interacting massive particles, what effect will it have on our daily life? And there are more than 100 scientists involved in the Galileo Project. So it's a scientific project involving more than 100 scientists that are building telescope systems. So the first telescope system will be constructed on the roof of the Harvard College Observatory in the coming months. To get, that will include taking a video of the sky in the infrared, in the optical band, the visible band, in the radio and audio, and recording all that data and analyzing it with artificial intelligence algorithms. And once the first telescope system will work, we will make copies of it depending on the level of funding we have. We need about $100 million to make enough telescope systems such that we will get enough data and we'll be able to make a very clear statement about these unidentified aerial phenomena. So we basically are following it using the scientific method. It's not a rich individual that studies a phenomena that is on the fringe by a group of people that do not have a PhD or a group of politicians, or this is not it. We are within the academic system. There are more than 100 scientists very excited about the prospects of the Galileo Project, doing scientific work, designing a telescope system that will be duplicated, that will collect scientific data, which will be analyzed in an open and transparent way, that will be published in peer-reviewed journals. We are already working on the first set of papers that describe the project, okay? So this is within academia. It's not part of the mainstream because we are the first one to do it. So just like the poem of Robert Frost, we are taking a path that was not taken. Now, Robert Frost said that made all the difference for him. For me, what it makes the difference for is that there may be low-hanging fruit that we will pick up that was never picked up because nobody took that path, okay? So it's not a matter of waiting for the future for this to happen. It's already happening. It's called the Galileo Project. And if we get enough funding at the level of $100 million, we'll give you definite conclusions about what these unidentified aerial phenomena might mean, or at least constrain them. We might explain them in terms of natural phenomena, human-made phenomena, or something else. It's a fishing expedition. We don't assume anything. We are following the scientific method, trying to collect the evidence. So, here you have it. You just have to wait a year or a few years, and you will get you will be able to review some scientific papers written on this subject, published in peer-reviewed journals, and it's happening. Now, the government is fully aware of that, and a testimony to that effect is the Gillibrand Amendment that was the foundation for the establishment of this new office in government that will start its operation in June 2022. When the Gillibrand Amendment was first formulated, it mentioned the Galileo Project. Now, I didn't do any lobbying in Washington, but it mentioned it. So apparently people there are aware of the project. So what you were describing is not something that we have to wait for and hope for. It's already happened. It happened already. Okay, so just stay tuned. And, you know, in order for this to happen in full scope, we just need full funding. That's all. And the level of funding that we need is at the level of a modest scientific project. $100 million is not a lot. The biggest scientific projects are $10 billion. And we will already be able to make very interesting statements about the nature of unidentified aerial phenomena with $100 million. We have a second component of the Galileo project, which aims to take a high-resolution image of an object like Oumuamua, this first interstellar object that was discovered in 2017 that didn't look like a comet or an asteroid from the solar system. And for that, you know, we are designing the space mission because, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. In my case, a picture is worth 66,000 words, the number of words in my book, Extraterrestrial. I wouldn't need to write the book if we had an image of Oumuamua. So that's the second component of the Galileo project. And hopefully in the coming year or two, we will be able to make significant progress in our knowledge.